All right, folks, as promised, we are going right to South Carolina. Nikki Haley now addressing supporters at a rally there in her home state.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
The way, keep fighting for freedom, Ralph. I'll be with you shortly. So we've got a great crowd, and what a strange week it has been. You know, we started this. There were 14 people in the race. And one by one, we dismissed the fellas, right? One by one. And what we saw in Iowa was we started at 2% and we finished Iowa with 20%. And I said, I want to be stronger in New Hampshire. Well, it became a two-person race in New Hampshire. And we got to 43%. And what happened after that was a sight to see. Because on election night, we were super excited. We had moved 25 points in the 3 weeks leading up to the election. And Donald Trump was totally unhinged. Unhinged. He was a bit sensitive. And I think his feelings were hurt, but he threw a temper tantrum out on stage, seriously, threw a total temper tantrum, and was talking about revenge. So after he talked about revenge and had a little something to say about me, that's fine. We raised $1 million online right after he did that. Then the next day, Unhinged again says, for anybody that supports Nikki Haley, you will be barred from MAGA. So we had a little fun with that. We started selling t-shirts that said barred permanently. We sold 10,000 t-shirts. We raised another $1.6 million. And then he did it again. Then he came out and he pushed the RNC and his people at the RNC to say that he should be the nominee and that they should push me out. And we said only 2 states have voted. There are 48 more that have to vote. No matter what Donald Trump thinks, he can't bully his way to the White House. It's not going to work. And after he did that, we raised another $1.4 million. So Donald, keep them coming because it's great. So I will tell you that while all of that has happened, prior to that, and look, running for president it's a lot. It's physically, emotionally, mentally, it's a lot, right? So you got to be at the top of your game. Well, he must have been tired because he was giving a speech, and in the speech he went on over and over and over again about how I stopped security from going to the Capitol on January 6th. And he kept repeating it. Now, I wasn't in D.C. on January 6th. I've never had a job in D.C., so I think he got confused. Having said that, he has said, look, I will take a mental competency test against her because, you know, I'm a big fan of mental competency tests for anyone serving in D.C. He said he would take one, and he said that he would beat me. And I don't know, maybe he will, maybe he won't. But if he's gonna do that, then he should have no problem getting on a debate stage with me. Because that's the ultimate mental competency test for anybody that wants to run for president. So I put that back out there, that he has no reason to fear. Come on up, let's do a debate, let's see what happens, and let's let this election play out the way it's supposed to play out. And then it went further. And here he had a court case yesterday, and to be honest, I have not kept up with any of his court cases. I don't know exactly what he's been charged, what he's been found innocent, what he's been found guilty. I know there's 91 charges, but I truly have been focused on running for president and not these other things. But I know that they came down and they're asking for a lot of money from him. And so I hear him sitting there ranting on how unfair this is. But this is the issue that I have. Maybe it's fair, maybe it's not. I don't know. But what I do know is all that time that he's spending in a courtroom defending himself, he's not fighting for the American people. Like he did on election night in New Hampshire, like he's done on his Twitter feed since he got the verdict. He has not once talked about the fact that he put us $8 trillion in debt in 4 years that our kids are never going to forgive him for. He's not talked about what he's going to do to stop the flow of fentanyl and secure our border once and for all, because we've got to get that done. He hasn't talked about how we're going to get our kids reading again. He hasn't talked about how he's going to bring law and order back to this country. He hasn't talked about how he's going to deal with any of the wars that are happening. And what I worry about for all of us is these court cases are going to go on for another year. And you know who sees that? Russia, China, Iran. That's who sees that. That's why I'm worried. That's the problem I have. We are $34 trillion in debt. We're having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. China owns some of that debt. Now, I would love to tell you that Biden did that to us. But I've always spoken in hard truths to you, and I'm going to do that with you today. Our Republicans did that to us too. You go back and look at that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that passed with no accountability, left us with 80 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. That's a third of our country. And did Republicans try and make it right? No. They opened up pet projects and earmarks for the first time in 10 years, pushing through 7,000 of them a year ago. Want to know how they spent your money? $30 million on an honors college in Vermont, $10 million to tear down a hotel in Alaska, $7.5 million on a courthouse in Colorado, and the list goes on. All while 1 in 6 American families can't afford their utility bill. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers. Homelessness is up 12%. 650,000 Americans are homeless. Congress has one job, and that's to make sure they give us a budget on time. Do you know Congress has only given us a budget on time 4 times in 40 years? You know what I say to that? We'll make sure of it. You don't give us a budget on time, you don't get paid, period. We will make sure we start with our economy by making sure we claw back the over $100 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are still out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, let's go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud. 1 out of every $7 was spent fraudulently. Donald Trump recently said the reason we went into so much debt was because of COVID. How could he let it get spent like that, where all of it was so fraudulently done? We count on our leaders to make sure they get it right. If 8% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing. Cut up the credit cards. You have to balance a budget every day. I had to balance a budget as governor. Why is Congress the only group that refuses to balance a budget? We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, I'll eliminate the pet projects and earmarks, and we'll veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. That will save us trillions. Then we're going to reduce the size of the federal government. We're going to take as many federal programs as we can and send them down to the states. Think education, think healthcare, think welfare, think mental health. If we go and take the strings off and send those down to the states, it empowers you here on the ground to have more access to those resources. So we've got what we need to do to get that back on track. We know how we need to get our economy back on track. But now let's talk a little bit about education. Do you know right now in America, only 31% of 8th graders are proficient in reading? Only 27% of our 8th graders are proficient in math. If we don't do something and do something quick, we're going to be in a world of hurt 10 years from now. What we did in South Carolina, we need to do across the country. Instead of pushing kids forward, we started holding them back. We brought in their parents. We did reading remediation. We set them up for success. We've got to do that across this country. We've got to get our kids reading again. And no parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. We need complete transparency in the classroom. Every parent has one job, and that's to make sure we do right by our kids. That's why every parent should be able to decide which school their child goes to or what mode of education they have. Education, when it comes to this, the kids and the parents decide that, not based on a zip code. So we need to have school choice across this country. And then let's start building things in America again. Let's put vocational classes back in our high schools. We have apprenticeships all over South Carolina. We've taught our kids how to build things. Just imagine if we got them ready before they even finished school and got them invested in our economy. That's what we need to be doing. And then I have to say, as a point of personal privilege, we love our boys. But for all you girl dads out there and all you strong moms, we have to raise strong girls. Strong girls become strong women. Strong women become strong leaders. And none of that happens if you have biological boys playing in girls' sports. We've got to cut that out. And then when it comes to the border, this doesn't even look like the United States of America, what's happening. I'll take you back to when I was governor. We passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country. President Obama sued me over it, and we won. I've been to the border, and I didn't pull a Kamala, go and come back. I went 400 miles down that border. You're not ready for what I saw. Mounds of clothes, mounds of shoes, paraphernalia, rape areas that the women and girls have to go through. When you get up in the morning, you get your coffee and you watch the news. When these ranchers get up in the morning, they get their coffee and they go see if anybody died crossing the fence. They pick up whatever little kids are left behind, turn them over to Border Patrol. I met with multiple sheriffs. They said before 7 a.m., they round up whatever illegal immigrants they can find. They turn them over to Border Patrol. Border Patrol documents them and releases them until their court date years from now. And when I asked Border Patrol about their job, they said, you want to know what we do? We're glorified babysitters. They don't let us do our job. 8.5 million illegal immigrants have come to that border. We had enough fentanyl cross the border last year that would kill every single American. Number one cause of death for adults 18 to 45, fentanyl. And don't think for a second China doesn't know what they're doing when they send it over. So what do we do when it comes to our border? We take what we did in South Carolina and we go national with it. We do a national E-Verify program where every business has to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. We defund sanctuary cities once and for all. No more safe havens in America. We put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one even steps foot on U.S. soil. And instead of catch and release, we go to catch and deport. That is how we will stop what's happening on the border. And I grew up in the sweet town of Bamberg, South Carolina. And my parents always taught me, you take care of those who take care of you. But I'm going to ask you if we're taking care of those who take care of us. Right now in America, over 35,000 of our veterans are homeless. 1 in 3 suffers from PTSD or thoughts of suicide. We lose 22 heroes a day to suicide. If a veteran needs a doctor's appointment, on average, takes 29 days. Why 29 days? Because on the 30th day, they can go to the doctor or hospital of their choice. So midway through the 29 days, they get a call to reschedule, and the clock starts all over again. It's shameful how we treat our veterans. Now, I'm the proud wife of a combat veteran. He served in Afghanistan. When Michael deployed, he left me as a single mom governor, and yes, we are still married. No, we were proud of him. But when he was deployed and he returned home, that was a lot of prayers answered. But that was the easy part. The hard part's when we got home. When Michael got home, he couldn't hear loud noises. He couldn't be in crowds. Life had passed him by for the year that he was gone, and the transition was tough. We can't just love our men and women when they're gone. We gotta love them when they come back home, too. You can't do a 2-week transition and say you're on your way. We got to take care of them for the long haul. So that's why we need to do telehealth so they have the mental health care they need right when they need it. They should be able to go to the doctor or hospital of their choice. They've earned that right. And I think the best way we take care of veterans' health care, I think every member of Congress should have to get their health care from the VA, and you watch how fast that gets fixed. It'll be the best health care you've ever seen, guaranteed. And then there were 2 things that Russia, China, and Iran never wanted us to have when I was at the United Nations. That is true. That is true. They never wanted us to have a strong military, and they never wanted us to be energy independent. We won't be energy independent. We will be energy dominant. We'll get the EPA out of the way. Right now, they care more about sagebrush lizards than they do about whether we can afford our utility bill. We will speed up our permitting. We will speed up our pipelines, including the Keystone Pipeline. And can you believe that Joe Biden now wants to stop our ability to export liquefied natural gas? That's the biggest gift to Russia you could ever give, because you're ensuring that they're going to get a ton of money and they're going to take over the liquefied natural gas space. It's ludicrous to do that. I saw Joe Biden's coming to South Carolina tomorrow. He needs to know he's coming to a state that believes in freedom. He needs to know that we don't want him telling us what kind of car to drive, what kind of stove to use, whether we can have a dishwasher or not. You know, I just came from the live free or die state of New Hampshire. I think we need to make it a live free or die country is what I think we need to have. So we'll export as much liquefied natural gas as we can. We'll do all of the above. No more going hat in hand to Saudi Arabia. No more getting dirty oil from Iran or Venezuela. We will make sure that we turn our energy sector into an economic powerhouse. And we've talked a lot about the things that we're going to do in D.C. But one that I think is really important. Don't you think it's finally time we had term limits in Washington, D.C.? Don't you think we need to have mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75? Now listen, I'm not being disrespectful when I say that. I don't care if they do them for 50 and up. We all know people who are over 75 that can run circles around us. That's not the issue. And then we know Joe Biden. These are people making decisions on our national security. These are people making decisions on the future of our economy. We need to know they're at the top of their game. Right now, Congress has become the most privileged nursing home in the country. And then let's talk about national security. The world is on fire, literally. You've got a war in Europe. You've got a war in the Middle East. You've got North Korea testing intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of hitting the U.S. You've got China on the march. But make no mistake, none of that would have happened had we not had that debacle in Afghanistan. The idea that Michael and his military brothers and sisters who served there had to watch us leave Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night without telling our allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with us for decades because we asked them to be there. Think about what that told our friends. More importantly, think about what that told our enemies. And now you have Congress saying, do we support Ukraine or do we support Israel? Do we support Israel or do we secure the border? Don't let them lie to you like that. That's a false premise and it's not fair. Let me tell you why. First of all, I don't think we should ever give cash to any country, friend or enemy, because you can't follow it and you can't hold it accountable. But we need to identify who our friends are and what we want to do to help. Ukraine was one of our best friends when I was at the United Nations. They voted with us on everything. They supported almost every initiative we have. Here you have this thug who invaded this pro-American, freedom-loving country. 500,000 people have died because of Putin. Now, when you look at that situation and you see what they have to do, what does that mean for us? Pro-American, freedom-loving countries, if we don't stick together, we will go to the wayside. Now, the reason, if you are one of those people saying, why should I care about Ukraine? You have a perfect, legitimate reason to ask that. What makes me mad is no one is answering you. No one is telling you why you should care. I'm going to tell you why you should care. I saw at the United Nations every day Terrorists, thugs, and dictators always tell us what they're going to do. They're amazingly transparent. Hamas said they were going to go into Israel. They did. China said they were going to take Hong Kong. We watched it during COVID. Russia said they were going to take Ukraine. It happened. China says Taiwan is next. We better believe them. Russia said once they take Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. Those are NATO countries. That puts America at war. We are trying to prevent war. This has always been about preventing war. Now, the truth that they don't want to tell you is, if we support Ukraine, that's only 3.5% of our defense budget. The Europeans have put in more than that, and they should. It's their neighborhood. Now you go to Israel. It's horrific what happened on October 7th. For anyone that says, why should we care about Israel? God help us if we don't get this one right. Israel is a bright spot in a tough neighborhood. They are the tip of the spear when it comes to defeating terrorism. It has never been that Israel needs America. It has always been that America needs Israel. And on that day of October 7th, when Hamas came in and they beheaded those people and burned those babies alive and took those girls from the concert and raped them and dragged their naked bodies through the streets of Gaza, what did they say? Death to Israel, death to America. That's why we have to care. If we supported Ukraine and we supported Israel, that's only 5% of our defense budget. Now, securing our border is priority number one. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They've done enough of giving excuses and putting it off. America right now is acting like it's September 10th. We better remember what September 12th felt like, because it only takes one to cause a 9/11 moment. If we supported Ukraine and Israel and secured the border, that's less than 20% of Biden's green subsidies. So don't let them tell you you have to choose. A president and Congress has to choose national security. A president and a Congress has to choose preventing war. A president and a Congress has to choose protecting Americans. That is their job, their number one job. There is a reason the Taiwanese want the U.S. and the West to support Ukraine, because they know if Ukraine wins, China won't invade Taiwan. There's a reason the Ukrainians want the U.S. and the West to support Israel, because they know if Iran wins, Russia wins. China, Russia, and Iran are bound together in an unholy alliance. An unholy alliance where they hate freedom, they hate democracy, and more than that, they hate the United States of America. We can defeat them, but not by putting our heads in the sand. We defeat them by making sure we let them know we're on to them and we tell them what we expect of them and not be reactionary. Now, I'll give you a story. When we moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem at the UN, I was happy. The entire world condemned us, and I was happy to take that on and take the heat that they were giving, and I gave it right back to them. But I was so mad because America always has been able to put our embassy wherever we want. We always put it in the capital of every country. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. We were acknowledging a truth. But I went back to my office and I said, I want you to put a book together. I want you to list all 193 countries. I want the second column to be the percentage of times they voted with the U.S. and against the U.S. And I said, I want the third column to be how much foreign aid we give them. Do you know last year we gave over $80 billion in foreign aid? You know who we gave it to? Iraq, who harbored terrorists that tried to kill our soldiers. Zimbabwe, the most anti-American African country there is. We gave money to Belarus, who's holding hands with Russia as they invade Ukraine. We gave money to Cuba, who we named a state sponsor of terrorism. And the one that makes me sick to my stomach, we gave money to China. How weak do we look? When I am president, we will no longer give money to countries that hate America. I took that book and I gave it to President Trump and I said, quit trying to buy friends, quit paying off enemies. That's not how we become strong. And we'll take care of it. But the one we have to take care of more than that, our #1 national security threat, China. China's been planning war with us for years, and I'm not exaggerating. They've already infiltrated our country. They've purchased 400,000 acres of U.S. soil, most recently near Grand Forks Air Force Base, where our most sensitive drone technology is. They put millions of dollars into our universities, stealing our research, spreading Chinese propaganda. We all got upset with the Chinese spy balloon, right? We have beautiful beaches. That's not why that balloon came over. It's because we're a strong military state. Now we know it connected with a U.S. internet company and sent all that surveillance to China. But what about the fact that 90% of our law enforcement drones are Chinese? Now think about all the mini surveillance that happens. Then you go and you look, there's certain technologies that build up China's military and threaten America. The Biden administration approved 70% of those last year. Trump administration approved even more than that. They've got Chinese police stations throughout our country. They've got a Chinese spy base going off our shores in Cuba. And they're building up their military at a scary pace. China now has 500 nuclear warheads. That's 100 more than they had last year. They have the largest naval fleet in the world. They have 370 ships. They'll have 400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have 350 ships in 2 decades. They're doing artificial intelligence. They're doing cyber. They're doing space. They're developing hypersonic missiles. We've barely gotten started. And now China's the lead developer of neurostrike weapons. Weapons engineered to change the brain activity of military commanders and segments of the population. That's who we're talking about. And Biden wants to tell you that China is a competitor. I dealt with China every single day. China never saw us as a competitor. They always saw us as an enemy. We've got to start looking at them the way they look at us. And the way we do that, no more sale of land to China, and let's take back the land they already purchased. We'll go to our universities and we'll say, you either take foreign money or you take American money, but the days of taking both are over. We'll get that infiltration out of our universities. We will blacklist all the technology that we don't want China to have. We will also go, think about it, more Americans have died of fentanyl than the Iraq, Afghanistan, and Vietnam wars combined. 75,000 Americans last year alone. We'll go to China and say we're going to end all normal trade relations with you until you stop murdering Americans. You watch how fast they move because they need our economy. And then we will build up our military and modernize it and make it strong. Strong militaries don't start wars. Strong militaries prevent wars. We have too many generals looking at wars of the past, land, air, and sea. We've got to look at the threats of the future. Cyber, artificial intelligence, space, hypersonic missiles, submarines. Those are the things we need to focus on. When we do that, that's when we'll get back on track. And for goodness sakes, we've got to get, you don't have to throw money at the Department of Defense. Clean it up. Get the bureaucracy out. Get the red tape out. Tell them to quit playing favorites with defense contractors. And more than that, get rid of these programs. I mean, for goodness sake, they have got to stop these gender pronoun classes. It's demoralizing our military. So we have the answers on domestic solutions, and we have the answers on national security. But now we've got to start speaking hard truths. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That is nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. But the only way we're going to win the majority of Americans is if we send a new generational conservative leader to the White House. That's the only way. We have to leave the negativity and the baggage behind and focus on the solutions of the future. Another hard truth. I voted for Donald Trump twice. I was proud to serve America in his administration. But rightly or wrongly, chaos follows him. You know I'm right. Chaos follows him. And we can't be a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it. And then you look at another hard truth. This is a fact. Look at every one of the general election polls. Now keep in mind, a vote for Joe Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris. We know that. And God help us if we ever get a President Kamala Harris. So you look at any of these general election polls. On a given day, Trump and Biden are even. It'll be a nail-biter of an election. We'll be holding our breath, and we'll be waiting. And we don't know if that means a President Kamala Harris. I am in every one of those same general election polls. And I defeat Biden by 17 points. Trump got mad and he said it was a dirty poll. And it's funny, it was Wall Street Journal, but it was his pollster that did the poll. Look, if you think about that, you win by that much. That's bigger than the presidency. That's House, that's Senate, that's governorships, that's school board. That's no more biting at the edges when it comes to Congress. But more than that, you go in with a win to D.C. with double digits. That's a mandate. That's a mandate to stop the wasteful spending and get our economy back on track. That's a mandate to get our kids reading again and go back to the basics in education. That's a mandate to secure our border with no more excuses. That's a mandate for law and order back in our country. And that's a mandate for a strong America that we can all be proud of. Don't you want that? Because we could have that. But in order to have that, it's going to take a lot of courage. Courage from every single person here. Courage for me to run. Keep going. And let the political establishment hear that. And that means courage for every one of you to know, don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't vote in this primary. It matters. This is a decision on whether you want to go forward or do more of the same. More of the same is not just Joe Biden. More of the same as Donald Trump. 75% of Americans have said they don't want a Trump-Biden rematch. The majority of Americans disapprove of Trump and disapprove of Biden. Both of those men, aside from what they want to say about the economy, put us trillions of dollars in debt that we're having to pull out of. And do we really want to go forward with 2 candidates who are in their 80s? We need somebody who can do 8 years solid, no distractions. And I saw recently, President Trump was surrounded by all these political endorsements, all these congressional members endorsing him. He was surrounded by the political establishment. The same political establishment who wasted our money. The same political establishment who didn't secure our borders. The same political establishment who allowed fentanyl to flow through. The same political establishment who's given us absolutely nothing for the last several years. And why does that same political establishment want me to get out of the race? Because I said we needed to have term limits in Washington, D.C. Because I said that if they didn't get us a budget on time, they don't get paid. And then I see the South Carolina establishment. Now, let me remind you a little bit about what we did together. We did some great things together. We came into a state that had 11% unemployment, thousands of people on welfare, and South Carolina was the butt of the jokes. And we all got together and we rallied. And what did we do? We passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country. We said if you've got to show picture ID to buy Sudafed, you've got to show picture ID to get on a plane, you should have to show picture ID to protect the integrity of the election process. We passed voter ID in South Carolina. We passed tort reform. We did pension reform. We paid down our debt. We built up our coffers. We cut taxes. We did things. We brought the unemployment from 11% to 4%. We announced jobs in every county in the state. And by the time I left, we were known as the Beast of the Southeast. We were named the friendliest state in the country, the most patriotic state in the country, and don't hate me for this, the #2 state in the country people were moving to. So now I see the South Carolina political establishment sitting around Donald Trump, and why are they doing that? I'll tell you. Someone asked me, why is the governor standing with Donald Trump? I said, oh, I'm sorry, the one that I defeated when I ran for governor? So then they asked, well, why is all the state house legislators? Why? And I'm sorry, I said, the ones that I made show their votes on the record, the ones that I made pass ethics reform where they had to disclose their income to all of you, the ones where I vetoed $500 million worth of pet projects and earmarks, those, you can have them. Well, I'll let y'all deal with Tim Scott. I'm not going to say anything about that. So this is what I'll tell you. We have fought these fights before. And what I know about South Carolina, we're fighters. We're tough. We know the BS from not. We don't want the political establishment. We want people fighting for us. It's always been that way. I fought for you as governor. I will fight for you as president. And let me tell you why this is so important. 6 months ago, I dropped my husband Michael off for another year-long deployment. And I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they'd never been, all in the name of protecting America. They're willing to sacrifice their lives and their families because they still believe in this amazing experiment that is America. So if they're willing to sacrifice for us there, shouldn't we be willing to fight for America here? Because we have a country to save. You know, they asked me when I announced why I was doing this. I said, my parents came here 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunities. I want them to know that country again. I'm doing this for Michael and his military brothers and sisters. They need to know their sacrifice matters. They need to know that we love our country. I'm doing this for my daughter who just got married, and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. The average home buyer in America now is 49 years old. The American dream is leaving them. And I'm doing this for my son who's a senior in college. And I am tired of watching him write papers of things he doesn't believe in just to get an A. That's not us. That's not America. And for the first time, 81% of Americans don't think their kids are going to live as good of a life as we did. We can't be okay with that. I'm not okay with that. We do have a country to save. But I'll tell you this. If you will leave here and take a yard sign with you, go to NikkiHaley.com, sign on to volunteer, to help, to get a t-shirt, whatever you want to do, just get involved. Go tell 10 people. Our goal right now, we all know friends who only vote in general elections. We need everybody out to vote on February 24th. Because they don't know how loud South Carolina can get. I do know how loud South Carolina can get, and I am telling you, we will be loud all the way to the White House. God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you.